Hey, what's going on, guys? So, the first official trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps dropped a while back, and it looks pretty cool. This continues to look nothing like what I want from a Fantastic Four movie, sans Galactus. But you know what? Despite that, I'm still weirdly excited for it. I like the cast. I love the costumes. I think the cosmic sweaters look really cool. The cinematography, at least based off of what the trailer shows, is above and beyond what we've been getting with the MCU for the past 5 to 15 movies. And it looks like a lot of fun. And the trailer did exactly what I think every great comic book movie trailer should do, in that it not only got me excited for the movie, it also just put me in a Fantastic Four mood, and I really wanted to read some Fantastic Four comics, which, weirdly enough, I haven't read a lot of, for some reason. And it's not a situation like the X-Men, or S.H.I.E.L.D., or even the Avengers for that matter, where I like the concept of those characters, but the actual stories themselves, 90% of the time, bore the ever-loving shit out of me. It's not that. Because I've genuinely enjoyed the few Fantastic Four comics that I've read. I just never got around to reading much Fantastic Four, I guess. Like, I read the Hickman run, and I liked that quite a bit. Obviously, me being me, I've read Ultimate Fantastic Four, because of course I did. That's the stuff that I grew up on, so obviously you know that I'm going to love that. I've also read bits and pieces of the Mark Waid run here and there. Same with some of the John Byrne stuff, which, honestly, I want to read more of, but Marvel does such an ass job of keeping that material in print that I just never got the chance to read through all of it. And I've read the iconic Kirby stuff, you know. I read issue 51, which I think is the first appearance of the Negative Zone, and the first appearance of Black Panther, which I think was the very next issue, in fact. I've read Earth X, technically not a Fantastic Four story, and more so a Marvel Universe story, but without giving too many spoilers away, it really just feels like a Fantastic Four story at the end of the day. But it occurred to me that I've never actually sat down and read the original Jack Kirby and Stan Lee run all the way through, which is weird considering the fact that I've had that first omnibus sitting on my bookshelf for like 5+ years, because I'm an authentic comic book fan and that I buy comics and don't read them. But I've been reading through this omnibus, and so far I'm at issue 12, or much rather I just read through issue 12, which is a crossover between the Fantastic Four and the Hulk, and I want to say I got to issue 3, and I was really resisting the urge to just put this down and read something else. Not because it's not good, but because it's just weird, and it's not what I expect from the Fantastic Four. And then I started talking to my buddy from work about how weird the first few issues of the Fantastic Four are, and he's a massive Fantastic Four fan. Like, Fantastic Four and X-Men are to him what Spider-Man and Daredevil are to me. And we talk about comics all the time at work. But he straight up told me, yeah, all that cool stuff like Silver Surfer, Galactus, Black Panther, the Inhumans, the Negative Zone, none of the shit that anyone actually likes and associates with the Fantastic Four happens until issue, like, 45 or something like that. Meanwhile, the omnibus that I've got only goes up to issue 30.
Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
And this is where I was, once again, rudely reminded, because this isn't the first time that this has happened when I've gone back to read 60s Marvel Comics, that Spider-Man is a fucking anomaly in the Marvel Universe. In fact, he's one of the very few characters in Marvel's pantheon that just hits the ground running. The character that you think of in your head, the pop culture, iconic Spider-Man of the movies and TV shows and video games, that Spider-Man is exactly what you get with the character right out of the gate. But no other Marvel character, except for maybe like Daredevil and Doctor Strange, really has that. Like, the iconic Iron Man, for example, that character does not exist until the mid to late 70s with David Michelinie and Bob Layton. Same with the X-Men. The iconic X-Men that everyone knows and loves from like the 90s cartoon and all that, that is not a thing until Giant Size X-Men, and that is an early 70s book, I think. But I digress. All that being said, I'm really glad that I didn't put this book down at issue 3, because it's actually been a really interesting reading experience. And I think my feelings on the series as a whole can be reflected through Jack Kirby's artwork. Because this is distinctly Jack Kirby's art, but it's not that iconic, everyone's a neon-colored brick with proportions that are leaping out of every panel with bold line work and the Kirby crackle. He's not there yet. It's still him, and you can tell that it's him in the way that he draws different robots and spaceships and, even some of the alien creature designs. Nobody was really drawing stuff like that the way he did, so you can definitely tell that it's Kirby. But he's still drawing in this pre-Marvel, timely comics horror house style, but as you go along with the book, the artwork does progressively become more dynamic and more so reflect what everyone thinks of when they think of Jack Kirby. And again, perfectly indicative of the book itself, because this is not a superhero comic book. This is a weird science fiction horror comic that evolves into a superhero comic. In fact, for the first 3 or so issues, the Fantastic Four don't even have costumes. There's no Fantastic Car, no Baxter Building, and they're not beloved public figures. They're just a bunch of mutated freaks who occasionally come together to stop other mutated freaks and alien invaders from destroying the world. In a weird way, and I know some Fantastic Four fans might not like this, but in a weird way, these early issues reminded me a lot of Josh Trank's Four Stick. Something else to note, issue to issue, this book feels like you're unlocking core elements of the Fantastic Four's mythology in a way that a lot of other Marvel comics from this era don't feel like you're unlocking core elements of their mythology. Like, you can definitely tell that Lee and Kirby are just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, and you can tell what sticks. Like, bringing back Namor and making him a villain, that definitely worked. And you can tell that it worked because he comes back every other issue. Meanwhile, Mole Man, the first ever Fantastic Four villain, surprisingly, not so much. And you can say the same thing for Doctor Doom. That first appearance of Doctor Doom was absolutely a success because he's another villain that just keeps coming back. And honestly, it's to the point where Doctor Doom and Namor are practically main characters in the book alongside the Fantastic Four. And speaking of, it's so weird reading early Doctor Doom, because you can tell that nobody knows how big of a character that guy is gonna be down the line, because he's played like just another goofy dipshit villain of the week. Like, he's not really all that menacing compared to a lot of other modern iterations of Doctor Doom. He's basically just Silver Age Lex Luthor. Like, in his first appearance, he kidnaps the Fantastic Four and forces them to test out his time machine so that they can go back in time to the Age of Pirates and they can steal Blackbeard's treasure. And when that doesn't work out, in the very next issue, Doctor Doom goes to Atlantis and is like, "Hey Namor, I don't like the Fantastic Four. You don't like the Fantastic Four. Why don't we just launch their house into space? Because that'll be the end of all of our life's problems." And there's just this endearing unseriousness to it all. And it honestly put me in mind of pre-Crisis Superman in a way that no other Marvel comic from this era, at their peak when it comes to Silver Age goofiness, really feels like a 50s and 60s era Superman or DC comic. And that was honestly probably the biggest hurdle for me when going through this. And actually, once I folded my brain around that kind of a logic, reading this was a lot more fun, Like, so far, my favorite issue has to be the one where Reed Richards puts all of the Fantastic Four's money in the stock market and loses. So now they're all broke, but just in the nick of time, someone in Hollywood offers to make a movie with them, and each role is worth $400 million or something insane like that. And the producer turns out to be Namor the Submariner, and it's all just another one of his ploys to get Sue to bang him. And there's another one that I really like where Doctor Doom just straight up takes a bulldozer to the fourth wall and walks into the Marvel offices and hold Stan Lee and Jack Kirby hostage so that they can call Reed Richards to their office so that Doom can kidnap him and swap bodies with Reed. Like, okay, that's the flavor of this comic. It's sort of just a big romp that doesn't take itself seriously, except for when it does, because then you'll randomly get a story like issue 8 with the Puppet Master, which is this poetic and haunting story about a man who's so obsessed with controlling everyone around him that his obsession ultimately gets him killed. Meanwhile, he has this blind daughter named Alicia Masters who falls in love with Ben Grimm, despite being a raging rock monster psychopath who is never not depicted as being a raging rock monster psychopath. She recognizes Ben's inner beauty and his kindness, which isn't ever really depicted in the book itself, but it's there, and she sees it, and it's this beautiful comic, and then you follow that up with Namor's casting couch, and it's a crazy whiplash. But again, Stan and Jack they're just trying stuff, but every now and again, you get a glimpse of what the book will turn into once everyone finds their footing. But yeah, this was an interesting series to go back to. I don't know if I would recommend it to everybody, if I'm going to be quite honest. I mean, I'm still going to keep reading it. You know, I'm not going to let a $100 omnibus go to waste. But, like, again, this is not really the Fantastic Four in the way that you know and love them from the later comics and the TV shows and video games. But you know what? I am glad that I did read through some of this, because this is the foundation of the Marvel Universe. And despite the Silver Age-ness of the tone of early Fantastic Four, there is a distinct flippant cynicism here that a lot of Silver Age superhero comics just don't have. And it's a cynicism that is firmly rooted in a Cold War era paranoia and anti-communist propaganda. Because despite what right-wing reactionary comics tubers would like to have you believe, comics, and specifically Marvel comics, have always been politically informed. And with that comes a level of satirical cynicism. And it's a cynicism that will go on to inform the larger Marvel universe, but also, it's a cynicism that Marvel Comics, quite frankly, just doesn't have anymore. In recent years, I've often described modern Marvel as like a baby DC or DC Junior. The Marvel Universe in a post-MCU, post-Disney world just doesn't feel like the Marvel Universe that I grew up with, you know? Like, the Marvel Universe, unironically, used to look like Venture Brothers. You know, how all the superheroes were, you know, these sociopathic narcissists, and the villains were all goofy discount James Bond villains, and the citizens kind of rightfully hated superheroes. Like, that was Marvel's thing for like 50 plus years. And then the MCU comes along, and Disney comes along, and that bite just, it's not there anymore. And it hasn't been for a while. So going back and reading this was a really nice refresher, even if I honestly would have preferred to be reading some of the later Jack Kirby stuff. I'm so glad I got to read this. Because again, it is an interesting read nonetheless. And I would recommend reading some of this early stuff only if you're really curious about the origins of the Fantastic Four and the foundations of the Marvel Universe. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And what are your thoughts on the early Fantastic Four comics if you read them? And what are your thoughts on the Fantastic Four movie trailer? Again, it looks fun. You know, on paper, I don't like the idea of an MCU Fantastic Four movie being set in the 1960s on a completely different Earth. But I also have a feeling that this movie is going to be a cracked mirror adaptation of Fantastic Four life story, and Jonathan Hickman's time runs out. But instead of the world ending with Secret Wars, it ends with Galactus eating that world's Earth, and the Fantastic Four travel through the multiverse to find a new Earth. I don't know. That's just me. I think that's what they're going to do. I don't really like soft-spoken Ben Grimm. It just feels weird. But I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out in context. Anyways, I'll catch you in the next one, and until next time, take care. Peace.